I chose the video about the 1954 case of Brown versus the Board of Education in Topeka, Kansas. There started to be cases popping up about the argument that segregation of schools violated the 14th Amendment. Thurgood Marshall of the NAACP led the crusade. The 14th Amendment states that no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of the citizen of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Many cases of segregation of races in schools were combined into one case. This is the case of Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas in 1953. Linda Brown was not allowed to attend school closest to her home because it was a white school. Thurgood Marshall argued that the quality of white schools were much higher than those of African American schools. Although the case of Brown versus the Board of Education was started in 1953, because of the justices being so divided, the case resumed in 1954. It was led by the Chief Justice Earl Warren. The Supreme Court needed a unanimous decision. After some time, he received the unanimous decision he needed and was ruled that segregation in public schools was unconstitutional because it violated the 14th Amendment. This decision overturned the separate but equal doctrine established by the Plessy v. Ferguson case in 1896. This case of Brown versus the Board of Education was a significant step for the Civil Rights Movement and the Voting Rights Act. What stuck out to me in this assignment was that there was more cases that wrapped into the Brown versus Board of Education case. I looked into this further in the text and found 4 other cases that were involved in a single case. Briggs versus Elliott in South Carolina, Davis versus the County School Board of Prince Edward County in Virginia, Gabert versus Belton in Delaware, Bowling versus Sharp in Washington, D.C. The video briefly mentions that other cases were involved, but for me to read about the specific names for some reason really made it stick out to me about how many people were significantly fighting for their equal rights at the same time. It wasn't just about one girl. I enjoyed the video. Sometimes hearing things make them stick out more for me than reading. However, the text jumped out at me about this topic this week. The text explains how the justices focus more on the damaging psychological aspects of segregation. This was brought up in the doll argument of African American children. They chose white dolls to play with over black dolls. They believe that this showed the self-loathing that was taught to African American children because of segregation at such a young age. Overall, I believe the video was helpful, but that the text does a better job in explaining this case.